This story is titled, I Funded Stepsister's Studies Until She Publicly Humiliated Me. Now all payments canceled and parents are begging for money after I cut her off. Hey Reddit, I'm Catherine, 25 years old, and the past few weeks of my life have been absolutely wild. I need to vent about my half-sister Emily, who's 17. I probably sound like an absolute jerk, but please hear me out before judging me. I made this huge commitment to help Emily with college, but everything went sideways real quick. So here's the full story of what happened. Let me start with some background. Emily and I share the same mom, but have different dads. I'm from mom's first marriage, while Emily is from her second one. Despite being half-siblings, I never felt like that distinction mattered. We've always been tight, just like real sisters would be. I've been looking out for Emily since forever. When mom worked late shifts, I was there helping her with homework. I stayed up all night during her first heartbreak, listening to her cry and offering what comfort I could. I even taught her how to drive, which nearly gave me a heart attack during those lessons. But honestly, it was pretty hilarious watching her try to parallel park for the first time. Things took a rough turn when her dad passed away last summer. She was completely crushed by his death, and I stepped up to be her rock through it all. Twice a week, I drove her to therapy sessions, and afterward, we would stop at this small diner for milkshakes. I let her vent about things I couldn't fix and just tried to be there for her. I really thought we had that unbreakable sister bond. You know, the ride or die kind that nothing could break. Then everything started changing. Emily went from being this sweet, bubbly kid to someone who was always on edge. She became super defensive about everything and started blaming her friends for the dumbest stuff. She'd call me ranting about how someone must have stolen her favorite sweater and not returned it, or supposedly taken her lip gloss and hair clips. Half the time I just listened, not knowing what to say because these accusations seemed so minor compared to what she was going through. I thought it was just the grief talking. Looking back now, I should have seen the red flags, but you know what they say about hindsight? It's always 20/20ths. Meanwhile, my own life was going pretty smoothly. I had finished college with good grades and landed a sweet job as a veterinary technician. I was finally starting to save up for further education after years of struggling financially. Things were looking up for me personally, which made me even more willing to help Emily when she needed it. When Emily got accepted into a local college in San Jose, everyone was over the moon about it. My mom couldn't stop smiling for days. It was like all her worries had temporarily disappeared. But reality hit hard pretty quickly. Losing her husband had completely wrecked my mom financially, and there was no way she could handle college tuition on her own. Eventually, mom came to me about helping out. Obviously, I said yes without thinking twice. She's my sister after all, and in my mind, family helps family. That's just how it works. We made a deal where I'd cover her tuition, and she would just need to work part-time for her personal spending money. I even offered her my spare room rent-free since the college was close to my apartment anyway. It seemed like a solid plan at the time, but I had no clue how much it would strain everything. Our relationship, my finances, my patience. I need to be real about something though. Helping Emily meant I had to make serious lifestyle changes myself. No more random weekend trips with friends, no more buying stuff just because I wanted it. But whatever, I was cool with it. I wanted her to focus on school without the stress of money hanging over her head. I thought we'd handle it together like we always had in the past. The first few weeks after Emily moved in were weird. It started okay, and it felt like a fresh start for both of us, living together as adults. Then she found this new crowd of friends, and something was off about them from day one. They'd show up at all hours, acting like they owned the place, with zero respect for boundaries. I tried to be chill about it at first, thinking maybe I was being too uptight or overprotective. But these people gave off sketchy vibes, the kind you don't want around your belongings. I caught one of them going through my kitchen cabinets once, like they were searching for something specific. I finally had to say something to Emily about it. I told her I wasn't comfortable with her friends coming over all the time and explained that they seemed suspicious. Her response? It's none of your business who I hang out with. Cool, great talk, sis. I had to bite my tongue to avoid starting more drama, but something felt seriously wrong. They seemed like they might be into some shady stuff. Maybe dealing drugs, who knows? I kept my mouth shut though since I had no proof, so what could I really say? Making everything worse, Emily wasn't holding up her end of our deal. She didn't even look for a part-time job like we'd agreed. The apartment was always a mess, and I started feeling more like her maid than her sister. I didn't want to nag her constantly, but come on. I was sacrificing everything here. I was cutting back on my own life and putting my plans on hold. The least she could do was meet me halfway. After months of saving, I finally managed to buy myself a car. Nothing fancy, just a used Toyota that was reliable enough to get me around. I had been saving for months to get it, and it felt like a huge achievement given how tight money had been since taking on Emily's tuition. One evening, I called Mom to share the news while Emily was sitting right there on the couch, just scrolling through her phone. "Mom, I finally got the car," I said excitedly. "Just need a bit more to finish paying it off." Mom was genuinely happy for me. I could hear it in her voice. "That's amazing, sweetie. You've worked so hard," she said. Emily didn't say a word, just kept scrolling through her phone. I didn't think much of it at the time. It wasn't some big secret anyway. I was just proud of finally making this happen for myself despite all the financial strain. I thought maybe things would get better now. I had my car, Emily was settling into college life, and I figured we'd find our groove eventually. I even thought the car might bring us closer, like a mini milestone we could share. After all, I was driving her to school and running errands anyway. It wasn't just for me, but Emily started acting even weirder, more distant than usual and more irritable about everything. She wasn't straight up mean, but her tone was off, like she had something to say but wouldn't actually come out and say it. We were already walking on eggshells around each other, and then the incident happened. The one that changed everything. I planned a trip to Lake Tahoe, nothing fancy, just a chill day out to get some fresh air and hopefully reset our increasingly tense relationship. I thought it might help us start talking again like we used to. Emily actually seemed excited about it, which was the first positive reaction I'd seen from her in weeks. I was looking forward to it too, hoping we could reconnect. On the morning of the trip, I started packing up the car, getting snacks and blankets ready for our day at the lake. Suddenly, I heard Emily screaming from her room. This wasn't her usual dramatic yelling. It was full-on panic mode. I dropped everything and ran over, thinking she was hurt or something serious had happened. I found her tearing through her room in complete chaos. Clothes were flying everywhere, all drawers were open, and she looked like she was losing her mind. "What's happening?" I asked, genuinely worried at this point. She was freaking out about her dad's camera, saying it was gone. But this wasn't just any camera. This thing was special. It was a vintage gold-plated Leica Luxus, worth thousands of dollars, that had been in her dad's family for generations. He used to take photos of her growing up, and it was one of the few meaningful things she had left of him. It obviously meant the world to her. I immediately started helping her search for it. We turned her whole room upside down, checked the living room, and searched the car. Nothing. It was like the camera had vanished into thin air. I asked if she was sure she had brought it with her when she moved in. She froze for a second, then shook it off. "I had it. I was using it just the other day," she insisted. I suggested that maybe she had left it at a friend's place. That was a big mistake. Her whole attitude changed instantly. She stopped searching, crossed her arms, and gave me this look. Half frustrated, half accusing. "I didn't leave it anywhere," she said slowly. "Someone must have taken it." Then it hit me. She wasn't just saying someone took it. She was saying I took it. The realization felt like a punch to the gut. "Are you seriously accusing me of stealing your camera?" My voice was probably higher than I intended, but I was completely blindsided. I knew she'd been weird about trust lately, but this? I never thought she'd go there, not with me, her own sister who had been supporting her through everything. Emily started with her excuses that weren't really excuses at all. "I'm just saying," she went on, "it's weird how you suddenly have money for a car, and now my camera's missing. Don't you think that's convenient?" I stood there completely stunned, unable to believe what I was hearing. After everything I'd done, paying her tuition, letting her live rent-free, dealing with her messy friends, and this is how she saw me? As some kind of thief who would steal a priceless family heirloom? Are you actually kidding me right now? I tried to keep my voice steady, but I could feel it wavering with hurt and anger. "I've been saving for that car for months. You've seen me working extra hours. You've watched me skip out on everything so I could afford it. And now you're accusing me of pawning your dad's camera?" She just shrugged like it was no big deal. "I don't know, it's just suspicious timing," she said dismissively. That word, suspicious, made me sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe she'd actually say that to my face. I told her I had receipts and could prove every penny I spent on the car. She just rolled her eyes and went back to searching through her stuff, muttering about how convenient it all was. The worst part wasn't even the accusation itself. It was that she didn't trust me. After everything we'd been through, all the times I'd had her back, she thought I'd steal something this meaningful to her. It felt like a knife in the chest, a betrayal so deep I didn't know how to process it. I didn't even know what to say anymore. I just grabbed my keys and told her I'd be waiting in the car if she still wanted to go to the lake. Part of me hoped she'd come out, apologize, or show some sign of regret for what she'd said. But nope. She just sulked the whole drive, barely speaking a word. The day that was supposed to bring us closer ended up driving an even bigger wedge between us. That was just the beginning of the end. After the lake trip and the whole camera thing, everything got unbearably tense. She basically stopped talking to me unless absolutely necessary. And even then, her tone was cold, like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. We fell into this weird, passive-aggressive game. She wasn't outright mean, but her whole attitude screamed, "You're the problem." She would leave her stuff everywhere, conveniently forget to clean up after herself, and crank up the TV when I was working. I tried to ignore it at first. I didn't want to make things worse, but it was really getting to me. Then stuff started disappearing around the apartment. Small things at first. My phone charger, my favorite coffee mug, some grocery bags I use for shopping. I initially thought maybe I had misplaced them, until I started finding them in Emily's room. My charger plugged into her phone, my coffee mug on her nightstand half full of some weird drink. When I asked her about it, she just shrugged and said, "Didn't think you'd mind." As if taking my things without asking was completely normal. I tried to let it slide. It wasn't worth fighting over such small things, and I was already too mentally drained to care much. But then it got worse. I started finding my stuff broken. An old college picture frame was cracked, my favorite water bottle had a huge dent in it, and my plants looked half dead, like someone had deliberately drowned them. Emily didn't even try to explain any of this. She just pretended nothing was wrong when I confronted her. Her behavior became increasingly reckless. She had friends over constantly. They were being loud as hell at all hours, leaving trash everywhere, and using my bathroom like it was a public restroom. When I confronted her about it later, she just rolled her eyes and said, "They're my friends." Like that explained everything and gave them the right to trash my apartment. "This is my apartment, Emily," I reminded her. "I'm the one paying rent. I'm the one cleaning up their mess." Instead of apologizing, she just stared at me with this dead expression and said, "Maybe you shouldn't have invited me if you didn't want to deal with my life." That hit differently. I had invited her to live with me to give her a better chance, so she wouldn't have to stress about money while in school. And this is how she saw it? Like I was the one causing problems? I just walked away. I couldn't even deal with her attitude anymore. That stupid camera situation wouldn't die. Emily wasn't openly accusing me anymore, but she didn't need to. The damage was already done. I could feel her watching me every time I walked into a room, like she was waiting for me to slip up or show some sign of guilt. It was suffocating living in my own apartment. The worst part? The whole missing camera story got out. I'm pretty sure Emily told her friends, and now the entire town knew about it. We live in this small place in Northern California where everyone knows everyone's business, and town gossip spreads faster than wildfire, worse than any social media drama. I couldn't even go to the grocery store anymore without feeling like I was in some bad reality show. You know that scene in Mean Girls where Regina spreads rumors about Janice? That was literally me now, except instead of high school drama, it was happening in aisle 5 by the cereal. I was getting side eyes everywhere I went and hearing whispers behind my back at work. Even my boss pulled me aside, not to scold me, just because she wanted to hear the real story. She lives for drama. Thank God she at least stayed neutral about it and didn't take sides. I tried brushing off the accusations at first. I knew I didn't take the camera. But as the whispers got louder and the stares became harder to ignore, I started questioning everything. What if I had accidentally moved it when I was helping her unpack? Could it have fallen into my stuff somehow? I kept replaying every moment in my head, trying to figure out if I had missed something. I started searching my own drawers and shelves just to be absolutely sure the camera wasn't somewhere in my things. It felt ridiculous, but the pressure was getting to me. Everyone seemed so convinced of my guilt that it was making me doubt my own memory. I started reading online about similar situations, looking for advice from people dealing with false accusations and family drama gone wrong. The comments were split. Half said, cut her off completely, while the other half preached about family loyalty. Not exactly helpful when you're in the middle of such a mess. Then, Emily's dad's family got involved. They were beyond furious and didn't even try to hear my side of the story. I started getting calls from relatives I hadn't talked to in years, all demanding to know how I could do this. They called me selfish, untrustworthy, a terrible sister. I tried explaining that I didn't take anything, but they weren't interested in listening. In their minds, I was already guilty. Case closed. I started getting messages on social media from people I barely knew. They were commenting on my old posts, calling me a thief and a liar. Some weren't even subtle about it, tagging me in posts saying things like, "Some people will do anything for money." It was completely humiliating. I ended up deleting my Facebook account because I just couldn't take it anymore. Meanwhile, Emily acted like everything was normal, or at least like this whole situation wasn't affecting her at all. She still went out with her friends and continued to act like I was overreacting about the whole thing. When I tried to tell her how much this was hurting me, how her accusations were destroying my reputation and relationships, she shut me down immediately. "Well, maybe if you didn't have something to hide, people wouldn't be talking," she said coldly. It got so bad that I started avoiding her completely. I'd leave for work super early and stay out late, just to avoid being home at the same time as her. I even started eating out more, even though it was killing my already strained budget. I'd do anything to avoid dealing with her attitude at dinner. I didn't know what else to do. Talking to her didn't work. Ignoring the problem didn't work. No matter how hard I tried to prove I was innocent, it didn't matter. In her mind and everyone else's, I was guilty of stealing from my grieving sister. I tried talking to Mom about it, hoping she could help figure this mess out, but even she seemed hesitant to get involved. "She's been through a lot," Mom said, as if that excused everything Emily was doing. "Maybe she just needs time to calm down." "Calm down!" I snapped back. "She's accusing me of stealing, Mom. She's trashing my apartment and letting her friends treat this place like a frat house. How is any of this okay?" Mom just sighed that tired parent sigh. "I'll talk to her eventually," she promised. "But you need to be patient." She's still grieving. I wanted to scream. I had been nothing but patient with Emily. I had bent over backwards to help her, and this was how she repaid me. I knew Mom was trying to keep the peace, but it felt like she was taking Emily's side, even if she wouldn't admit it. Things kept getting worse until I finally hit my breaking point. One of Emily's aunts from her dad's side called me out of the blue. I hadn't talked to this woman in years and could barely remember her name, but she came in hot, full of accusations. She said if I didn't return the camera immediately, they were filing a police report for theft. A freaking police report! I almost laughed from the shock of it. I tried explaining that I didn't take anything and that they had zero proof of their accusations. She cut me off mid-sentence. "We don't care about your excuses," she spat. According to her, I had disrespected their family, and they would make sure I faced consequences. That call lit a fire in me. I was done being quiet, done being patient, done letting Emily drag my name through the mud. This wasn't just petty gossip anymore. This was serious. If they filed that report, it could wreck my job, my reputation, everything I'd worked so hard for. I got home that evening ready to end this whole thing once and for all. I went straight to Emily's room and threw the door open. She was just lying there, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. Seeing her so calm while she was actively destroying my life made my blood boil. "We need to talk right now," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside me. She didn't even look up from her phone. "About what?" she asked, using that fake innocent tone she had perfected lately. I clenched my fists, trying to control my frustration. "About how your dad's family is threatening to file a police report because of your stupid accusations. You need to fix this, Emily. Right now." She finally looked up from her phone and raised an eyebrow, like I was being unreasonable. "Why should I?" She shrugged. "It serves you right." My jaw dropped. "Serves me right? Are you actually serious right now?" "You made yourself look guilty," she said, her voice flat and dismissive. "Maybe if you weren't so sketchy about your car, people wouldn't think you stole the camera." That was it. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Emily, are you actually kidding me? I've done nothing but help you. I'm paying your tuition. I let you live here for free. I've sacrificed everything to make your life easier. And this is how you repay me? By trashing my name? Turning everyone against me?" She rolled her eyes. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you stole from me." I felt my chest tighten. Each word from her made me more furious and more heartbroken at the same time. "Get the hell out," I said, each word louder than the last. "Pack your stuff and leave. I'm done with this." "You're done here." For a second, she looked shocked. like she didn't think I had it in me to stand up to her like that. Then her face hardened. Fine. She stood up. I don't need you anyway. I stormed out of the room, shaking with anger. I couldn't even be in the same space as her anymore. I went to the kitchen and gripped the counter to steady myself, hardly able to believe it had come to this after everything I'd done for her. That's when I heard it. Not light thuds, not just stomping, but full-on destructive pounding coming from outside. My heart jumped into my throat as I ran to the window. There was Emily, sprinting across the driveway like an absolute maniac with a baseball bat in her hand. What the hell is she doing? I muttered to myself as I fumbled with the door lock, barely making it outside in time to witness what happened next. I heard the sickening crack of the bat hitting my car. But she didn't stop there. She pulled back like a professional baseball player and swung again, this time hitting the hood and leaving a huge dent. I froze for a second, completely dumbfounded by what I was seeing. Emily! I shouted, rushing toward her. What the hell are you doing? She turned to face me with a smug look on her face, still gripping the bat tightly. Without saying a word, she swung it again, slamming it into the side of my car with a loud thud that was so jarring it made the neighbors come out to watch the spectacle. My stomach dropped as I looked at the dent in my car, the car I had worked so hard to save for. What is wrong with you? I asked, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. She smirked and rested the bat on her shoulder like some cartoon villain. Oh, what? This your precious car? She taunted. Figured it could use some character to match its owner. I clenched my fists, taking a step toward her. Emily, drop the bat, I demanded. Now! She laughed bitterly and tossed the bat onto the driveway as if she had made her point. Fine. You're so dramatic, she said dismissively. You know that? It's just a stupid car. Should have thought about that before telling me to get out like I'm some kind of trash you can just throw away. I didn't respond to her provocations. Instead, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number, keeping my voice as steady as possible despite the rage coursing through me. My sister just damaged my car with a bat, I explained to the dispatcher. I need someone to come out here. Emily's smug expression faltered as she realized what I was doing. You're seriously calling the cops? Over this? She asked incredulously. Wow, guess family doesn't mean anything to you. No, Emily, I said firmly. Respect doesn't mean anything to you. I've had enough. The minutes felt like hours as we waited. When the patrol car finally pulled up, Emily crossed her arms, her face blank but clearly tense. The officer stepped out and took in the scene, his eyes going from my dented car to the bat lying on the ground. I explained everything to the officer, how Emily had been causing problems, how she had taken a bat to my car right in front of me, and how I felt unsafe in my own home. Emily tried brushing it off, claiming, "It was just one little hit. She's blowing things out of proportion." The officer didn't buy her excuse. "Did you hit the car with the bat?" he asked directly. Emily shrugged. "Yeah, but it's not like I destroyed it. It's just a dent." The officer looked unimpressed with her attitude. "That's still property damage," he explained before turning to me. "Do you want to press charges?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, I do." Emily's jaw dropped at my response. "You're really doing this?" she asked, seeming genuinely shocked that I would take legal action against her. "You left me no choice," I said firmly. "This isn't about the car anymore. It's about all of it. I've done everything I could for you, and this is how you repay me. I'm done." After a few tense minutes, the officer told Emily she needed to leave the premises. She stormed into the house, slamming every single door while grabbing her stuff. When she came back out with her bags, she wouldn't even look at me or say a word. She got into a friend's car that was waiting outside and drove off without looking back once. The officer handed me a copy of the report and gave me some advice about handling the situation going forward. I tried to listen, but everything felt blurry. I was too exhausted, both emotionally and physically, to process anything he was saying. When the officer finally left, I stood alone in the quiet driveway, staring at the dent in my car and the bat still lying there. I picked up the bat, feeling its weight in my hands, and then tossed it in the trash. It felt symbolic somehow, like I was throwing away all the chaos she had brought into my life. I sat there thinking about everything that had happened, and one thing was crystal clear. Emily could kiss her college funding goodbye. After everything that had gone down, there was no fixing this relationship. I had done my part, more than my part, and if that made me the bad guy in someone's eyes, so be it. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own well-being for someone who had so little respect for me. But the story doesn't end there. I spent the next week trying to get my life back on track, which wasn't easy. Between dealing with the police report and explaining everything to my landlord, it felt like I had taken on a second full-time job. Luckily, the car damage wasn't too bad. I managed to fix most of the scratches and dents myself, though it still hurt to see what she had done to something I worked so hard for. The fallout from Emily's actions hit her hard. The charges I filed triggered a hearing, and word spread through our small town again. Now Emily wasn't just the girl who lost her dad. She was the one who went off the rails and got herself into legal trouble. Interestingly, her dad's family did a complete 180. The same ones who had threatened me with a police report now wanted nothing to do with her. They acted like she was some kind of pariah, though they still didn't apologize to me for their accusations. Then the truth about the camera finally came out. It turns out Emily never even brought it to my apartment in the first place. She had packed it in one of her boxes when moving in, but accidentally left that particular box at Mom's house. Mom found it while cleaning the guest room, buried under old clothes and papers. Mom called me the moment she found it, her voice a mix of relief and guilt. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "I should have checked sooner. This whole mess could have been avoided. I was too stunned to be angry." The camera, the very thing that had started this entire nightmare, had been sitting safely at Mom's house the whole time. The irony was almost too much to bear. When Emily found out, she gave what barely passed as an apology. "I was stressed, okay?" she said when confronted about her false accusations. "You have no idea what I've been going through. You should have understood." "Understood?" I snapped back at her. "You accused me of stealing. You trashed my name. You tried to destroy my car. And now you're telling me I should have understood? Are you kidding me?" She had no real answer to that. She just muttered something about being overwhelmed and walked away like that somehow fixed everything she had done. The damage was already done, though, and Emily was starting to feel the consequences of her actions. The charges I filed meant she now had a record, which didn't help her chances of finding a part-time job to support herself through school. Without my help covering her tuition, she couldn't afford to stay enrolled and had to drop out entirely. This only fueled the town gossip more. Her so-called friends, the same ones she had defended so fiercely when living with me, disappeared almost overnight. I guess it's easy hanging around when someone else is paying for your fun. But the moment things get tough, they all bail. Emily was left with nothing but the mess she had made for herself. The fallout hit social media hard too. People who had jumped on Emily's side at first were now posting vague apology statuses like, "Wow, some people really know how to ruin their own lives." It was petty, but honestly, I didn't feel bad for her anymore. She had brought this all on herself through her own actions and choices. Mom tried to mediate as always, though even she was running out of patience with Emily. "I love her, but she needs to learn," Mom said one evening on the phone. "She's burned every bridge she has. She has to figure this out on her own." I knew Mom was struggling with guilt. She always does when it comes to Emily, but I couldn't bring myself to feel the same way. I had given Emily every chance to fix things, to take responsibility for her actions, but she had thrown all those opportunities away. Emily ended up moving in with an old high school friend who lives in a rundown apartment on the edge of town. It's not exactly a great situation, but it's all she can afford now. Neither Mom nor I reached out to her after that. It felt like we all needed space from each other. Life slowly started returning to normal for me. The gossip around town gradually died down. People at work finally stopped giving me side eyes, and I even managed to repair some relationships that had been strained during the whole ordeal. The relationship between me and Emily, though? It's beyond repair at this point. I hear updates about her sometimes from mutual acquaintances. How she's working odd jobs to make ends meet. How she's burned bridges with even more people. She seems stuck in a cycle that she can't break out of. The last time I saw Emily was a few weeks ago at the grocery store. She looked rough. Her eyes were hollow, her movements jittery, and she had this worn-down expression that wasn't like her at all. She glanced at me briefly, and I thought she might say something, maybe even apologize after all this time. But she just turned and walked away, her steps unsteady, like she couldn't get out of there fast enough. I don't know if we'll ever fix this relationship. To be honest, I don't even recognize the person she's become anymore. The sweet, bubbly girl I grew up with seems to have disappeared entirely, replaced by someone bitter and self-destructive. Meanwhile, I've started saving for postgraduate education again. It's going slowly but surely in the right direction. My car thankfully still runs fine despite what happened, and I've even started taking weekend trips with friends again for the first time in years. It feels good to reclaim some of the freedom I had given up. Do I regret helping Emily at first? Not at all. She's still my sister, and I wanted to help her succeed. But I do regret letting her walk all over me for as long as I did. I should have set boundaries earlier. I should have recognized the red flags sooner. Sometimes loving someone means knowing when to step back, and for me, that time is now. I guess that's my story. I'm not looking for sympathy. I just needed to get it all out. Sometimes family isn't what you think it is, and that's okay. I'm moving forward now, and that's all anyone can do after something like this. For anyone who's been in a similar situation, just know that you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially when they show no appreciation for your sacrifice. It took me too long to learn that lesson, but I'm glad I finally did.